And as God has blessed us with the opportunity to do so, we learn something here. I need your input. I'm going to need your output. I'm going to need your overput, everything else. I just want you to get involved. Ask questions. That way we can learn one from the other. First thing we're going to deal with the first outline that we have, is we're going to look at scriptures. And it's scripture clarification. Scripture clarification. When I'm saying scripture clarification, I'm looking at the fact that the scripture tells us about scripture. Scripture defines scripture. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. Isaiah. We have to understand scripture defines scripture. Scripture will tell you about scripture. Scripture will let you know about scripture. And the only thing we have to do is be able to find out where the scripture is, what the scripture is saying, and then see how that scripture references to other scriptures. Because scriptures define scriptures. They tell you about what's going on. So the first one that we're going to look at here is 2 Timothy 2:15. Somebody get that and read it for us, please.
Study to show thyself
All right.
approved to God, the workman needed not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
That's it. Study to show who?
Thyself.
This is not for somebody else. This is for you. You study to show yourself approved to God. It's yourself to God. I think often we study to show ourselves approved unto men. So we can get pats on the back. They can say how much we know, how smart we are, how intelligent we are. Oh, you just know so much script. And we just take it and absorb it in, get the big head that we just got it going on in 2 bags of chips. No, it's to study to show yourself approved unto God. Period. So that you can be a workman. Because see, that's what this Bible study is about. It's a workman. You got work to do. So that you won't be ashamed. Rightly dividing the word of truth. Rightly dividing. That is being able to do a little bit here, a little bit there. That's why I always say, don't try and study 6 chapters at a time. You'll never make it. You take a little bit at a time. That's how you study. You take a look. Because I guarantee you, you get the right scripture, you get 4 or 5 scriptures, you're going to end up in about 7, 8 books. So how do you have time to take a whole chapter and try and study it? Not if you're studying. Now, you're just reading. That's different. You can read a whole chapter. That's great. But you didn't study it. To study it takes a whole lot more. It's a whole lot more in-depth to study. Because before you know it, you're in Numbers, or you're in Exodus, or you're back over here in 1 Timothy, or you're in Corinthians, and you got all this other stuff. And you done found about this word and about that word, and you studied this thing and that thing. And I don't know why somebody's trying to call me at 6:45. Been away from a while. Okay. So you study. And remember, it's yourself unto God. Yourself unto God. Not unto anybody else. Not for anybody else. Not about anybody else. I don't study to show my wife how much I know. Not for her. When I have my study, we have my own private study. We have studies together, but I have my own private study of what God is dealing with me on, what he wants me to apply to my life, things that he wants me to deal with. But then we have our studies together that we do. But it's different. Myself unto God. I'm to be approved by him, not by man. Second scripture of clarification. 2 Timothy 3, 16, 17. Somebody read that one.
All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, thoroughly equipped for every good work.
Right? So how much of the scripture is given by God? How much? So why do I hear folks saying it, well, that's a man that wrote that. What did it say about scripture? All scripture is given by inspiration of God. No man sat down by themselves and just decided to put this thing together. Let me just write this thing and just call it a scripture. No. These people were moved by God. All scripture is given by inspiration of God. And it is profitable for doctrine, that's teaching, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect and thoroughly furnished into all good works. Here we go back to good works again. The scripture is going to produce good works in you. When you get into the scriptures and the scriptures get into you, it's going to produce good works in you. So these scriptures are by inspiration of God. Anybody notice a theme here? Yourself to God. You study. Inspiration of God. You see? It's not man-made. Has nothing to do. We know men print these Bibles. Nelson or what's the other one? Verbatim or all the other ones that are printing companies. They print this. But this scripture is given by inspiration of God. Now we're going to get into later the different types of scriptures. We're not there yet. Now we're going to get a little deeper into some things and find out the different interpretations. Like I talked to some people last week and asked them different variations of the Bible. We're going to talk about that because some Bibles are directly from the original manuscript. Other ones are interpretations of that. And others are interpretations of that. So you got to see which ones come from the original manuscript. Those are the ones that are taken straight from what was written. Straight from the Dead Sea Scrolls, straight from the partridges that were given out, those things that were found straight from the Torah, they were taken straight from it. And they were just converted into English. And we're going to look at some of those. And we went through some of those when we were going through the history of the church. We already had gone and exposed some of those. So we're going to go back to them and we're going to look at them and see those influences of the Bible and see how those things were interpretations directly from the manuscript, and then how some of them were interpretations of the interpretations, and then how some of them are interpretations of the interpretation of the interpretations. Totally different. But you study to show yourself approved unto God, and then these scriptures are given by inspiration of God. Psalm 19, 7 through 9. Somebody get that.